The blind beggar had been sitting beside the eastern road for so many years that people had stopped seeing him. His name was Jonah. Every morning, before the first carts entered the city, he would spread an old cloth beside the gate, place a wooden cup in front of him, and listen to the world pass by. He knew people by their footsteps. He could tell when a farmer had sold his harvest by the sound of coins moving inside a pouch. He could tell when a soldier was angry by the speed of his boots. And he could tell when someone was lying because their breathing always changed before their voice did. Jonah had lost his sight as a child, but over the years, he had learned to notice things that people with perfect eyes often missed. One evening, long after the market had closed, Jonah was still sitting near the wall because the rain had made the road too difficult for him to walk home alone. Most of the city gates were already quiet when he heard two men approaching. They stopped behind a row of empty merchant stalls, not knowing Jonah was still nearby. One of the men was Cassian, a wealthy landowner whose family controlled large fields outside the city. The other was a local official named Malachi, a man trusted by judges and respected by merchants. Jonah recognized both voices immediately. Cassian whispered, "Tomorrow night, the farmer leaves his house to check the southern field. Make certain he never returns," Malachi answered. "And the land records?" Cassian said, "Already prepared. When he is gone, the debt will appear. His wife will have no choice but to surrender the property." Jonah felt his entire body go cold. He knew the farmer they were speaking about. His name was Amos, a quiet man who sometimes stopped to leave bread beside Jonah's cup. Amos was not wealthy. His small farm was all his family had. Jonah remained perfectly still until the two men walked away. The next morning, he tried to warn people. He called out to merchants, guards, and travelers. "Please, someone listen to me. Amos is in danger." But most people kept walking. One merchant laughed and said, "You hear ghosts in every shadow, old man." Jonah shouted louder. "I know the voices I heard." A city guard stopped and asked, "Did you see these men?" Jonah lowered his head. "No." The guard laughed. "Then what exactly do you expect me to arrest them for? A story told by a blind beggar?" By midday, even Amos had heard what Jonah was saying. He came to the gate and knelt beside him. "My friend, I believe you heard something, but perhaps you misunderstood." Jonah grabbed his arm. "Do not go to the southern field tomorrow night," Amos sighed. "My animals have broken the fence twice this week. I have to check it." Jonah's voice began to shake. "Then take men with you." Amos promised he would be careful, but Jonah could hear hesitation in his breathing. That afternoon, a crowd began gathering near the road. A traveler had entered the city with a few followers. Jonah heard people whispering a name he had heard many times before: Jesus. Jonah had never met him, but stories had traveled even faster than caravans. Some said he healed the sick. Others said he challenged powerful men without fear. As Jesus approached the gate, Jonah called out, "Teacher, please stop." Several people tried to quiet him. One man said, "Do not bother him with rumors." But Jesus stopped. He walked toward Jonah and sat beside him on the ground. Not above him, not standing over him, beside him. Jesus asked, "What did you hear?" Jonah told him everything. He expected questions about whether he was certain. Instead, Jesus asked, "How long have you known the voices of these men?" Jonah answered, "For years." Cassian's sandals drag slightly on the left. Malachi clears his throat before every important sentence. Jesus smiled gently. Then, perhaps the man who cannot see has noticed what the city refuses to look at. That evening, Jesus asked Jonah to come with him. They went to the home of Amos, where Jesus told the farmer, "Tomorrow, go to the southern field exactly as you planned." Jonah was shocked. "But they will be waiting for him," Jesus replied. "Yes, and we will be waiting for the truth." The next night, Amos walked toward the field carrying a lantern. Unknown to Cassian and Malachi, several witnesses were hidden nearby, including Jonah, Jesus, and two respected elders of the city. Jonah could not see the darkness around him, but he could hear everything. A branch cracked. Two men approached Amos. Cassian said loudly, "You should have paid your debt." Amos answered, "I owe you nothing." Malachi stepped forward and said, "The records say otherwise." At that moment, Jesus walked out from behind the trees. The men froze. Cassian quickly said, "This is a private legal matter." Jesus asked, "When was this debt created?" Malachi replied immediately, 3 years ago, after the winter harvest." Jonah suddenly lifted his head. "That is a lie." Everyone turned toward him. Malachi laughed nervously. "And how would you know?" Jonah answered, "Because 3 years ago, after the winter harvest, Cassian was not in this city. I remember because his servants passed this gate every morning asking travelers if anyone had news of him. He was in Damascus for 6 months. Cassian's breathing changed. Jonah heard it. Jesus looked toward Malachi and said, "Perhaps your records remember a man being in 2 places at once." One of the elders stepped forward and demanded to see the documents. Malachi began making excuses. Cassian turned to leave, but the second elder blocked his path. Then Jonah heard something fall to the ground. A small metal seal. Malachi had dropped it. The elder picked it up and immediately recognized it as the official stamp used to approve land transfers. He asked, "Why are you carrying this at night, in a field, before Amos has even agreed to surrender his land?" No one answered. The entire plan collapsed in minutes. The forged records were discovered the next morning. Cassian lost his claim, and Malachi was removed from his position. Amos kept his farm. Days later, Amos came to the gate carrying a basket of fresh bread. He placed it beside Jonah and said, "You saved my family." Jonah shook his head. "No, I only heard what others ignored." Jesus, who was standing nearby, said, "That is often how truth survives. Not because the powerful protect it, but because someone everyone overlooks refuses to let it die." Jonah smiled. He had spent most of his life wishing he could see the faces of the people passing him. But that day, for the first time, he understood something. The city had been full of people with working eyes, yet almost everyone had been blind to the truth. And the man who could not see had been the first one to notice what was really happening.